The Cult, the Purgatory series, Book 1. Written by Susie Harrison. Narrated by Caitlin Pareko. Copyright 2022. Chapter 1. I found a rocky part of the mountain that I could grip with my hand, followed carefully by a place for my foot to hold. It was a 20-foot climb, but not straight up. I knew if I slipped, I could just readjust. As I neared the top, I heard more yelling and some groaning sounds that did not sound even human. My adrenaline was so high that it didn't even frighten me, more increased my curiosity. I slipped. Dang, just lost 10 feet. I'd almost made it. I felt my knee burn, probably skinned it through the leather. My wrist had been cut too, but nothing I couldn't suck up. Again, I angled myself and maneuvered my limbs to land in the right places for support. I suddenly heard the battle come closer my way. I had to reach the top. I grasped onto the last wooden branch carved into the white, concrete-looking hill. With all the strength I had, I pulled my body up with a grunt. I was half on the flat surface now, just had to shimmy my butt and legs. Leather doesn't slide or slip. It would have been easier with regular pants on, but not the white cotton ones they made us wear in the cottages. At last, I reached the flat surface of the white mini mountain. For a moment, I just lay on my back, catching my breath and looking up at the sky. I could hear the battle below, but while catching my breath, I admired the stars above with the full moon. I had never seen constellations so bright before. Could I locate the Big Dipper? No, I had to move. I flipped my body to my stomach and got on my hands and knees to crawl to the edge. There, I saw it. I couldn't see right away who was who. It must have been all the men in the village over 18. I knew Butch must be there. He was a hunk of a man. Peter. I thought I saw his frame off ways to the north. Then I made out Butch farther north. My rock was on the southern end of the fight. I saw a few men closer to me, but I didn't have time to check who. I jumped back. I'd seen the enemy, in dark clothes and very thin, almost skeleton-like faces. My heart was already pounding, but needed another boost, apparently. Were they men in costumes? It couldn't be. Maybe to hype up their enemy to scare them. Yes, psychological warfare as well. I grabbed the huge sack that I had positioned, like a backpack, all the way up the mountain. I didn't have time to feel the weight of it on the way up. I pulled out my bow and positioned an arrow. Steady. I witnessed the Reaper suffer the green boundary electricity, then another, and break through after 2 of our men. They were outnumbered. They had swords. They would need them. But where I was, the bow would be fine. I just was crouched down, not standing and facing a moving target. Steady. My mind went back to the memory of my father teaching me to use a bow. Steady. Patience, Pumpkin. You don't need to go fast. You take your time. The target is more important than your speed. Dad instructed. A 90-degree angle is best. Like that, yes. My dad was proud, but in this world, I wasn't in the position for a good stance or a 90-degree angle. I pulled my string back to the best anchor point I could get in my position. I sighted one of the Reapers. My bow moved with him. I watched his movements so I could predict which direction he would move next. I pulled farther back. 3 fingers. Release! At the same time, "Yes, Dad," I said, as if he were right there with me. I released. With anticipation, I watched the arrow just miss. Dang! 2 Reapers were in combat with one of our men below. They were so involved in trying to kill our men that they didn't even notice my arrow whiz by them. Good thing, my spot was still safe for another. I repeated my actions. My men were starting to lose the battle, and I had to help. I repositioned myself and leaned further in. Arrow. Try for 90-degree angle. Anchor point. Steady movement. Predict. Sight. Fire! 3 fingers off the string, same time. Yes! I took one down. As the fierce arrow flew through the air with great fervor, it not only hit him in the upper body, but knocked him down behind the green line. I ducked down for a moment, not to be seen. Then peeked over the edge, 2 still left. Then I saw Jesse look up in my direction. I ducked. He couldn't see me, I didn't think. I was camouflaged. I had kept my target small. My hair. Damn! White-yellow hair in the moonlight. Didn't matter. There were 2 Reapers left, at least at this point, and they were gnarly. I loaded up another arrow. 90-degree angle, or the best I could do. Detect movement. Predict next motion. Anchor point. Release. The split seconds it took to fly through the air were like 5 minutes to me as I held my breath, hunkered down low, but high enough to see. Another one down, landing on the green boundary and seizing from the electrical current. 2 down. This time, Jesse saw me. There was no time to shout about it, but also another man, Damon, saw me too. My damn hair. Note to self: when sneaking into a battle, put your hair in a bun. Now it was 2 of our men against 1 Reaper. They took him down with their spears and swords and held him to the green electric light while the Reaper quivered and appeared to pass away. Damon gave a quick glance up. I swear I saw a thumbs up from him, though he didn't say a word from that distance. Farther down, Butch and others were still struggling. I could not shoot that far from this rock. I knew I would have to gather my things and scoot down my rugged hill and get closer. I would have a better aim. I'd have a better stance, but I also had a spear and sword. I even dipped then in that sap, which might be poison to the Reapers. I don't know. I hurriedly grabbed my bow and arrows and placed them back into my large sack, repositioning them on my back with makeshift ties of rope I had earlier. Going down is faster than coming up. I skidded down each step I had configured on the way up. I could feel blood ooze from my knees into my leathers, but didn't feel an ounce of pain. Awesome. I arrived at the bottom, but didn't take a moment to think. Coverage wasn't an option now. I had to go into the battle in full view. I ran north in the field, my hair blazing in the wind with great speed. I watched near the middle of the fight, where 2 of our men were also fighting off 3 Reapers. "Hey, boys!" I yelled. All 5 of them, the 3 Reapers and the 2 townsmen, stopped, shocked. For a moment, it was like they didn't understand what or who I was. I started running towards the 3rd Reapers with my spear, then suddenly stopped before I got to him. I turned my back on him and stood still as a mouse. I took a breath. My ears went on alert. I could hear his movements on the ground below. It was a silent moment in time. What time existed, anyway. I could feel his vibrations, and a sixth sense told me when to back my tar-dipped spear with all my strength, thwart my spear into what would have been a man's solar plex. It hit! Then, in a sudden twist, I moved my body around like a spinning top. I took my sword and spun it around with me with a shout. When there was no more resistance, I stopped. Somehow, I took 2 of them out, and they were now on the green boundary convulsing. I wasn't a hero. I was just helping, and I went to different spots of the war, switching from arrow to spear to sword. Then, one Reaper found me where no one else was as close. The Reaper seethed at me with an unearthly sound. He was human, sort of, just unworldly skinny and almost glowing eyes. He was on one side of the boundary. I was on the other. I growled back at him, which was ridiculous. I didn't sound tough at all. We sat in a defiant glare for what seemed like an hour. Then he jumped through the boundary, electrocuting himself on purpose to get to me. I thought in a split second, they crossed the boundaries to take food, goods, and women. As Amber warned, that was probably a different tribe. No use for the dead to take women. I'd have to kill him. As he jumped through the boundary, I hunched down quickly for my double-edged dagger that I had also dipped in that tar. Maybe it wasn't poison, but I kept hoping. I stayed hunched down, although it seemed a submissive position to the beast coming at me. It was really my advantage. As he jumped up and came down to land on me and tear me apart, my dagger flew out and crisscrossed his throat, into his eyes, and through his heart. My movements were quick and precise. I meant it that way before he even thought of crossing the green border. He was dead, or would be when I tried to kick his body back to the green boundary, which seemed to kill them when pressed to it. I screamed as the Reaper's bony hand suddenly grabbed my ankle. The Achilles tendon has been forever known as the weak spot on the human body, and he had it. Although he was thoroughly injured and, on the ground, he pulled with such force my body fell next to his. My upper chest landed damn hard against the earth. We both lay there for a moment, my blue eyes looking into his deadly green ones. His deadly green eyes looking into mine, almost as if we were communicating something. Then I noticed I was not breathing. The air had been knocked out of me when I was flung to the ground. I could not move. I could not breathe. I was dead. Butch swooped in and flung the deadly Reaper into the boundary and held him there till he died. I still could only watch as I was paralyzed. My body wanted to moan for fresh air, but I could only lay frozen on the cold, hard ground. From another angle, Jesse came and picked me up. I didn't think of him as that strong to carry a 120-pound girl any distance, but I could only look at him. "It isn't nice when you get the air knocked out of you, is it? Don't worry, you're just about to take a breath." He calmed while I just stared into his face, motionless. Jess was making note of when I had knocked the air out of his brother.